A little history of myself. My name is Haven Del Pino, and I am a bankruptcy attorney licensed in Florida. Been practicing bankruptcy for 10 years now. I'm here to tell you that I saw the peak of the recession in 2008 and what it did to our country and what it did to our businesses and to our financial affairs. And I can tell you that this experience with the current pandemic is a little, Ms. Del Pino, I've always paid my bills. I've always tried to do right. And I'm here to tell you that bankruptcy shouldn't have this stigma. It's actually a solution that is in our country. It's across all of our states. Many people have used it. Many people, including popular celebrities, everyone's used bankruptcy at some point in their life. And it's definitely a solution, and it shouldn't carry the stigma that I see that it carries. So I'm here to clarify some of those points. What is a bankruptcy? So bankruptcy is a federal process. And what this federal process provides, it provides elimination of your debts. It provides security against your creditors, your harassing creditors. I don't know if anyone has experienced or has had a friend or family member say, that's just another creditor calling, and sends them to voicemail. I know that I have had explanations from my clients saying, they call me on Sunday at 6:30 in the morning. I just had a baby. And I'm like, that's what creditors do. The creditors are in the business to harass and collect, and unfortunately, we succumb to these high interest rates sometimes due to necessity, or sometimes we take certain risks. Finances is a very risky thing. We just don't know what's going to happen the day of tomorrow. And so we proceed in a manner that we feel is going to help us, and sometimes it just doesn't. And what's evident with that today is, look at what's going on with the coronavirus. This pandemic has really impacted all of us in one way, form, or another. So the best way that I can explain what a bankruptcy is it's a federal protection that comes in place, and immediately when you file for it, it gives you an automatic protection. And that word automatic is very important because it's actually called an automatic stay. Immediately, your creditors cannot contact you, they cannot write to you, they can't call you, any lawsuit that's pending immediately stops, and it's stayed. You have a protection. And let me tell you that protection is very important for many people. I've had people that have come into my office on the verge of suicide because of their financial issues. They're unable to sleep at night. It's causing them illness. Financial problems are very serious, and so when we hear the word bankruptcy, I kind of want to change the tune and no longer give it that stigma option for our financial problems. What can bankruptcy do? So bankruptcy provides several protections, and some of them include you can eliminate all your credit card debt, your unsecured debt. You can also eliminate personal loans. So there's paycheck loans, or people sometimes go in and request a small personal loan from their lender, or from sometimes lapse in coverage. There's so many reasons why we have medical bills. And whatever that reason may be, that's also a possibility to include and eliminate in a bankruptcy filing. You can also modify student loans. And I know that this is a new topic. It's ongoing. It's developing every day. There's actually plenty of seminars, but there's actually a program where you can actually go in and modify your student loans. And this is really important because most of the population today, those of us who have tried to study one technique or another, or even gone on to post-grad school, we have a huge amount of student loans, and it could be for anything. I have clients with student loans for attending beauty school, teaching certificates, actually engineering degrees, trying to get a technical assistance, a degree. A little bit more about that later on. But that possibility does exist. There's many reasons why people file for bankruptcy. It's not just because of unsecured debt like credit cards or medical bills or a lawsuit. It also has to do with the possibility of modifying your mortgage and also eliminating a second mortgage or line of credit that you've taken out on your home. Last and not least, bankruptcy can help you stop a foreclosure against your home. Very important, because in today's day and age, some of us have fallen behind on our mortgage payments. And as you know, the next thing that happens after that is you're going to get a knock on the door from some process server or sheriff, and you're served now with a foreclosure lawsuit against your home where you live. I mean, this is something that we need to protect. It's our home, and for one reason or another, we need to try to save it, whether it be that we defaulted, our interest rate was variable and it's now spiked and increased, our escrows have also increased because of insurance or taxes. So there is the possibility to modify your mortgage within a bankruptcy and also stop the foreclosure process. I'm gonna now talk to you guys a little bit about the different types of bankruptcy. I practice consumer bankruptcy, and what that means is I represent individuals or corporations that need to go bankrupt for reasons including their finances or lawsuits and so on and so forth. I don't represent creditors for the most part. I've done that in a limited capacity, but primarily I do consumer bankruptcy. So I generally practice Chapter 7, which means you can file a Chapter 7 when you want to liquidate all your debt, and you qualify for a Chapter 7, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. And I also practice Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a little different. It's a longer process, but it provides a lot more options for those of us who have some more assets or make more income, but still need the ability to reorganize our debts. And both of these chapters serve the same purpose. They provide the automatic stay in place where you have complete protection from any lawsuit or any harassing creditor. It just depends what your goals are and what you qualify for to see which chapter you would actually end up filing. So I definitely recommend speaking to a professional, because that's a very important part and aspect of coming to terms with what chapter you're going to file, and so you need that proper guidance. Who can file for bankruptcy? Basically, any individual or joint married couple can declare bankruptcy, as well as any corporation that has debts. I can also advise that any person who has property located in the jurisdiction that they're in. So, for example, if you're a foreigner and you don't have a social security number, but you have property here, you can also file for bankruptcy. A lot of people don't know that, but it is a possibility. You are eligible to receive protection to save that property or whatever other issues you have going, even though you're a foreigner, don't necessarily have a social security number. So again, any individual, any joint married couple, and any corporation that's looking to liquidate their debts or reorganize can file for bankruptcy. Now, for corporations that don't want to liquidate and they still want to operate, they can go ahead and file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I don't practice Chapter 11 because it's for bigger corporations and involves a lot more in depth. There's many practitioners that do, but it's a small niche group. But that's a different type of bankruptcy for corporations that aren't going to liquidate and aren't to become insolvent. They still want to operate. So that's the other chapter that is just not included in this series today. We're going to focus on Chapter 7 and Chapter 13, both for individuals and corporations on the 7 end, and Chapter 13 for individuals. I mentioned that if you're married, you can both file for bankruptcy at the same time and receive the same protection. And the same is true if you're married and only one of you want to file for bankruptcy. I get that question a lot. Like, I'll have a person come into the office and they want to file for bankruptcy because they've really made a mess with their affairs for one reason or another. However, their spouse does not have any involvement with that debt. They have their own finances, their own debts, and they don't have the same financial situation as the person who's sitting in my office. And so the question becomes, can I file without impacting my spouse? And the answer to that is yes, you can. Yes, you can. One of you can file without impacting your spouse. I would ask further questions at that point and see if you have joint debts, because although one of you does file, your partner, your spouse, is responsible for that particular debt. And so that's something that we take into consideration when I'm doing my consults. I'm discussing to see what exactly are the debts of the household and what would be the advantages or the disadvantages for one filing jointly or separately, or the other spouse not filing at all. The next question that I get is very common, and people will tell me, how long does this process take, right? So generally, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a short process. From the moment that the person files for bankruptcy in a Chapter 7, they will have a meeting of the creditors within about approximately 30 days. And thereafter, assuming there is no objections to the person receiving a discharge of their debts, 60 days from there, they will receive a discharge. So generally, the actual process from the moment the person files to the completion is about 3 months, 90 days. And that's a pretty short process to go ahead and come in and liquidate all these debts for someone who does qualify. The next question that comes after that usually is, when will I get my credit back? And that question varies, that answer, varies. I will tell you that I've had a lot of feedback from clients throughout the years, and I can tell you that I've had clients after completing their Chapter 7 bankruptcy who had stellar credit within 8 to 10 months after. I will also tell you that I've had clients who, after completed their Chapter 7 bankruptcy, qualify for an FHA mortgage loan 12 months after their bankruptcy. So that my answer to that question is, it depends on the person. When you file for bankruptcy, you're required to take a credit counseling course before. It's a requirement for everyone, and it's online. And I haven't personally taken it myself, but I've heard a lot of feedback, and I always ask my clients, how was the process? What did you learn? What did they ask you? And basically, that credit counseling course kind of guides you and prepares you for after your bankruptcy filing. And I think that my clients that use that information going forward are the ones that most quickly are able to restore their credit. I will also tell you that once you've defaulted on a payment, and depending which type of payment or the amount of debt that you have and your debt to income ratio, your credit score is greatly impacted. And what happens is, I notice that some clients are paying 70, 80, 90% of their accounts at a minimum payment every month, but that 10% of their accounts are negatively reporting to their credit, so they're never really getting their credit better. And also what happens is they're only paying mostly interest because they can't afford all of their debt to recover at a rate that would be provided as if we did the bankruptcy. So the issue becomes, how long are you going to try to sit and try to get out of that hole? I've had clients explain to me that it feels like there's running up a downward escalator trying to get out of that debt, and they just never get to the top. And they're paying on interest, and they're paying, and they're totaling $800 to $1,000 a month on all these different loans and credit cards, and then they'll go ahead and take another loan with a lower interest to try to liquidate all the other debts, and then somehow, some way, they're now incurred additional debt, and they didn't quite make it out of all the other debt, and the story just goes on. And that's just for my clients that are suffering with the credit cards. I have clients that, for other unfortunate reasons, whether it be divorce has a great financial impact on people's lives. Whether it be a medical situation, that has another great financial impact on people's lives. Whether it be the coronavirus. I mean, there are situations that happen to us that are unforeseen and unexpected and beyond our control. And that is why there does exist a solution of a bankruptcy. I want people to understand that there is a solution if it's needed. I'm not one to, when a client comes in, immediately, the first thing I tell them is, let's see if this process is going to benefit you. I don't immediately assume that they should file for bankruptcy. That's not how it should be. I will tell you that by the time someone comes to me, 90% of the time, they end up filing for bankruptcy because it just happens to be the solution for them. However, sometimes I don't recommend it. I'm like, listen, if you do this, this, and this, you don't have to file for bankruptcy, really. Or you can do this, or you can wait for this. And so one of the things that I will tell you that clients have tried to me is debt consolidation. When it comes to debt consolidation, and again, it varies from individual to individual. Every circumstance is different. I will tell you that most of the people that come to me have tried debt consolidation and are now having to file bankruptcy and spend so much more money and have waited so much longer to try to repair or fix their credit, and then end up ultimately having to file for bankruptcy, and I'll explain why. I'll give you an example. I had a client come in. She had been consolidating her debts for 18 months now. She had been paying $588 per month on all these credit cards trying to consolidate. So we're 18 months in, and I'm not a math expert by no way, shape, or form, but let's just say that that's about $9,000, and I think I'm right because I did 500 times 12 and then added the 6, and I didn't even go up to the 588 because that's not my expertise. I always use a calculator. So let's say $9,000 to $10,000 she's in paying on these credit cards, and she gets a lawsuit from her American Express credit card. And she's got 20 days to respond to this lawsuit, and they're gonna start garnishing wages from her employer, if they do prevail and win on this lawsuit, or she's gonna have to come to some sort of settlement with American Express directly. And she says to me, I don't understand, I hired this company, and I've been paying for 18 months, and I still get sued. And when I asked this company, what's gonna happen now? Are you guys gonna help me? They're like, no, you have to go ahead and represent yourself or retain an attorney to defend that lawsuit. We don't help you with that. We're trying to negotiate all your debt. That doesn't mean that your creditors won't sue you. And she's like, had I known this, mind you, she still owes on most of her credit cards, to include American Express, and she now has a lawsuit that she's facing, and she still has bad credit. Her credit's still negatively being impacted every month because she hasn't resolved all of her debt at the same time, and she's just spent approximately $10,000. So she comes in and she says, had I known this, I would have filed for bankruptcy years ago, and I would have been done with this process, and my debt would have all been eliminated. So we ended up filing her bankruptcy, immediately stopping this lawsuit and liquidating all her debt, and she was done in 90 days. For a fraction, I want to say for almost a tenth of the cost of what she was paying for this debt consolidation. I will tell you that in her circumstance, she tried debt consolidation because she didn't want her spouse to know her financial doom that was ongoing, and it ended up coming out anyway. But everyone's got their reasons, and I don't knock anyone for trying other avenues and trying to resolve. If you can, that's wonderful, and it may be the way to go, and that's why I think it's very important that you speak to a professional. Moving on, I'm going to discuss the next popular question I get. I get a client that comes in and says, I haven't come sooner because I know I can't do bankruptcy. I own a home. And I get confused, and I'm like, is it your homestead property? Do you live there? And they're like, yeah, of course I live there. But I can't file for bankruptcy because I don't want to lose my house. And that, I will tell you, is a false notion. You can file for bankruptcy and your house is protected. We have something in Florida called homestead exemption, and it's actually a very big exemption. I don't know if you guys have heard of the OJ case at one point. I'm sure everyone has. And one of the reasons that OJ ended up moving to Florida when he was sued civilly was because he could buy a home here and protect his asset within the home against his creditors. And you can read more into that, but I will tell you that Florida has a very, very wide homestead exemption, and your home is protected. I will also tell you that if you have an investment home, there is a possibility to save your home and your investment home as well. At the crash of the market in 2008, I had many clients that came in during that time, 2011, 12, 13, and these were investors. They had 2, 3, 4, 5 homes. I remember I had one client that had 17 homes, all within the same road. And you can apply to modify each and every one of those homes, just like you can apply to modify within a bankruptcy each and every one of your loans on your homestead property. So just to recap, if you have a homestead property with a mortgage, and then you took out a line of credit, and when I say second mortgage, line of credits for purposes of bankruptcy are treated as a second mortgage. It's the same thing. You can actually modify your first mortgage and your second mortgage, just like you can modify your second mortgage and not have to modify your first because you're current. I've had people with the vice versa. They are actually current on their second mortgage, but their variable rate went up on their first mortgage and they've come in and had to try to modify. So there's many, many options in bankruptcy that people are unaware of. And that's why it's important to speak to someone who's a professional, because they are going to, I've had clients, they're going to let you know what is the benefit and why it may or may not be for you. But I've had clients who have come in for one reason and ended up filing for bankruptcy for a bigger reason that was so much more beneficial for them. And they're like, my goodness, had I known this, I would have done it sooner. So there's many benefits. You can actually liquidate your debt as well as modify your loans, including student loans like we discussed earlier. And the next question that I have is, can I keep my car? And yes, you can keep your car. You can actually keep your car both in Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. And you can also keep your toys. I have people with jet skis, motorcycles, boats. I mean, it just depends what chapter you're gonna qualify for and what you can do. Sometimes it's not the best idea to keep those items, and I will look over that. I have clients that have a vehicle at 24% interest rate, and I'm like, get rid of this, turn it in, let's get you something else at a much better rate, and you can do that all within the bankruptcy. There's many, many advantages in filing for bankruptcy. I have clients coming in more recently with the token that they have either lost their job, been furloughed, or reduced it. They have had a reduction in hours. And that is huge, because there are people now that before the COVID did not qualify for a Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy. And because of the COVID, they now qualify for Chapter 7, as opposed to having to file a Chapter 13 and reorganize a portion of their debts. So it's very important to reach out and speak to a professional who can go over these things with you, because the last 3 months, there's a 6-month look back period when you file for bankruptcy. We look at the last 6 months and we take an average of those 6 months. And because of the COVID, I will tell you there's many people who did not qualify previously for this Chapter 7 and now do qualify. So it's very important to look at your options, especially if you're struggling financially, and see if that's the solution for you. I know I mentioned modifying the loan for the home, and I'm gonna come right back to that, but I just wanna talk about one topic because I get this question a lot too. What happens to my stimulus? Am I gonna lose it? And the answer is no. For the most part, most of you, if you file for bankruptcy and you are waiting on your stimulus or you've received it, it is protected. Trustees, we've had many seminars on this, they're not going after it. And I know I mentioned the word trustee. The trustee is actually the federal person who is assigned to the case and who handles the administration of the bankruptcy on behalf of the government for the benefit of the creditor and the debtor. So my job would be to represent you as the consumer, and then there's a trustee assigned when we file. So trustees are not going after these stimulus checks. Can the creditors touch your stimulus check? They absolutely can. If they get a garnishment, a writ of garnishment, they're going to go in your account. I have clients that are being garnished. They're garnishing their paychecks. Please don't think that because of COVID, there's a silver lining on the end with these debts and the creditors are just gonna let you be. They need their money as well, and they're gonna do what they need to do based on the agreement that you entered to, whether it was a bad agreement because it's super high interest, and whether it doesn't work for you anymore. Just know that you need to do something about your financial situation sooner rather than later. You should definitely do that and speak to someone about it. I'm going to just discuss about the modification. My last topic is there is a program in the bankruptcy that is called the MMM program. That's 3 M's. And this program is, what it stands for is it's called the Mortgage Modification Mediation Program. And this is the program where you can simultaneously, while you are in bankruptcy, file to participate in a mortgage modification. And the same program is true for student loans. So it's the same program that exists, and what happens is we file a motion within the bankruptcy court and get a court order that allows you to participate in this program, and there is going to be a mediator assigned, and we are going to have a mediation with your lender. I will tell you that the modifications that I'm recently seeing during the COVID are excellent modifications. The government has slashed our interest rates due to the financial status of the economy, and they are very low. So everyone who's coming in and used to have a 4 or 5%, we just got a 2.6% fixed rate on one of our modifications. Again, it varies, but I will tell you that there's plenty of programs. You know, lenders are not in the business of taking your home. That's not how they make their money. But I will tell you, if you are having a financial hardship, you should apply to participate in one of these programs, and they will more than likely work with you so long as you provide the documentation and the actual financial hardship that they need to see. And once we do all that for you, that's part of my office's procedures, and we assist you within both programs, with the bankruptcy as well as the MMM program. So again, just to recap, that program is to modify mortgages